Tip Friday.
Welcome to another very special edition of Fit Tip Friday. Once a month, I interview wellness professionals on various health-related topics. Today, I'm very pleased to welcome Juliana Diaz. Juliana began her passion for service through her studies and working as a psychotherapist. After several years of general practice, she felt a calling to expand to a more ontological approach and focus on mentoring women on a journey to self-discovery and healing. Juliana's experience with sexual traumas, body dysmorphia, infertility, anxiety, depression, and renewal after divorce allowed for an evolution in her mentorship to include a very holistic, empowering, yet gentle and effective approach to guiding women towards their balance and their personal equilibrium from which peace and well-being can arise. Juliana is a well-being mentor and owner of Elemental Truth, and here today to have a very open conversation with us about women's health and well-being. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, Juliana. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
So let's start with, what is well-being mentorship and how did you get into this modality?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I get that question a lot, like what's well-being mentorship? So basically, I was educated in classical psychology and psychotherapy in university. And I actually had a practice for several years in these modalities. But after some time, I kept seeing clients with really slow type of progress. And I started to kind of realize and felt that like these classical methods of therapy that I had been taught weren't really effective for all people. And I myself, Sherry, was going through trying to heal and my own personal traumas. I discuss this a lot in my videos and everything, but I share my story. I was raped and assaulted. I went through 2 divorces. I myself had eating disorders and many other things. So as I was going through my own journey, I also realized for myself that focusing only on psychology was limited. And in my case, really felt like it was incomplete. It was an incomplete process. So I started to look for alternatives, not just for myself, but for my clients. And I found that it's not one area of study that can guide a person to their healing, but it's more like a collection or a culmination of many different ones. And I think this is because we're all really unique and complex beings. And to approach each person with like this box or cookie cutter type strategy is short-sighted and, in my humble opinion, a bit antiquated. So well-being mentorship is a combination of psychology and other modalities of healing. And what's so beautiful about it is that it expands into the whole being. So it supports the other areas like the physical, the emotional, the energetic systems, kind of like a body, mind, and soul, but without the dogmas. So it fits anyone's belief systems and paradigms. So my particular expertise is helping women in that murky area where we sometimes find ourselves when we're having issues finding clarity in our lives, when we're stressed out and overwhelmed, and we're feeling like we don't know how to get out of the chaos and the confusion. And really, it's our minds that have gotten us into this mess. So in my very first interactions with my clients, we actually do something called personalized roadmap to clarity. It's a simple, I know it's a mouthful, but it's a simple and basic process. We co-create together to bring light to the areas or issues that really are the root causes of feeling all this stress and sometimes really unhappiness. So once a person's able to see the bigger picture and reverse engineer themselves out of the stress their minds have created, that's when they begin to see the day-to-day realistic and really doable actions and choices they can make for themselves. And that helps them to slowly bring them into more confidence and empowerment. And it's like the magic elixir, and people begin to feel really free and unburdened. And then they can really feel a sense of peace and space to enjoy their life in all its forms. So that's really what well-being mentorship is all about.
Amazing. So you talk a little bit about like awareness and the importance of being aware of your minds in your YouTube video. and your social media posts. So what is the main premise of this philosophy of being aware of our minds?
Yeah, well, Sherry, it really all comes down to the way that our minds have been created and trained to help us see the world. So let's have a little bit of a history class here. Biologically and evolutionarily speaking, our brain is built to take in sensory information from the world. It interprets it based on our history, our upbringing, our education, what we've been exposed to. And it helps us evaluate strategies of behavior and action to survive. It's all about survival with the mind. So this worked really well for us as humans when we had environments of high mortality, right? When we were cavemen out there hunting lions and stuff, and when we were faced with real mortal dangers. However, thankfully for most of us, hopefully on watching this video and here in this group, this isn't the case for us anymore, right? So there may be some instances where we might find ourselves, I'm not saying we won't, but there could be instances where we find ourselves in kind of precarious situations. But truthfully, 99% of our time in our life is really not that way. So, but the brain keeps collecting information and our minds keep trying to keep us safe because that's what it was wired and engineered to do. So the issue here is that we've never really been taught how this system works and how to use it actually in our favor. We go through our lives years and years thinking that this voice in our heads, the mind telling us that, my job is too stressful, or my coworker is undermining me or going behind my back to my boss, or the many other things that we create in our minds. Like, I know our neighbor has a better lawn than I do, and I have to keep up with them, or etc. All that other stuff. It's really not us. We're on a sort of autopilot going through our days without really contemplating and without actually being aware of what is actually crossing our minds, how we're interpreting the world, and then the results are the sensations that we have in our bodies. So we've lost touch completely with our active participation in this whole process. And that is what breaks down the experience for most of us. So Sherry, let me give you a real simple example. I use this example in a lot of my posts and stuff too, because I just think it's something that all of us can touch and feel. So, so you're driving to work, right? You're going to work, and let me know, Sherry, if this has happened to you or not, but you're driving to work or a place like you're really familiar with, you go a lot, and you get in your car, you turn on the ignition, and off you go. How many times has it happened to you that when you're halfway there, or actually you've gotten there, you're parked, and you're like, how the heck did I even get here, right? You don't have any clue, how you got here. It was almost like you were on autopilot, like you were robotic. So you don't remember if you saw a dog on your way to work. You don't even know how many times you stopped at a stoplight, what the music was on the radio, but somehow you got there. And you got there okay, obviously, right? So you must have put on the brakes when you were supposed to. You turned on the right streets. But it wasn't like you were knocked unconscious. Your body was being steered by the automatic program that's running in your head. But the real you, wasn't present. So I hope that kind of makes you understand a little bit about the different presences or aspects we have inside of us. So that's why many of us have moments when we feel like we're prisoners in our lives, like we have no control, like everything's out of control. Because we feel sometimes like some of my clients say that I feel like I'm just on a hamster wheel and I can't get off. And that's the biggest mistake we make, believing that we have no choice. Everybody, please, you have a choice. And once you become more and more aware of the moments whizzing by in your day, and you begin instead to choose to be more present, even in the really boring and mundane moments, you begin to see that your life is really not out of control, that you have a say in how you experience your life. So in fact, you do see and begin to live in a much more empowered way, and that makes all the difference. And this is why something I focus on so much. So the majority of my content speaks directly to this point. Reacting versus responding is another kind of branch of the same thing. So when you live in a state of oblivion, the mind and the body have no choice but to act and direct your life with these limiting and fear-based narratives that have created these survival mechanisms in you. You then react to your experiences without choice because you're giving all your power up to this reaction, to this kind of instinct, to your mind, your primitive mind. So in contrast, when you make space in your day to be present, to really feel yourself in your body, to be aware of what you're seeing and sensing, you then have the opportunity to choose how you're going to respond. Again, the difference between reacting and responding. So you give yourself a moment to breathe and you center before you decide, how am I going to make this next moment unfold? So the choice to respond and not to react brings you out about your empowerment, and suddenly you don't feel limited or trapped anymore. You're not a victim of your life anymore.
That's so interesting. Oh my goodness. And yes, I have driven to work and wondered what happened between the time I left to the time I got there. You got me.
Yeah, all of us. It happens
I've done
to
it.
all of us.
Done it. Yep. Can you give us an example of a survival mechanism?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to use myself as an example.
Okay.
I personally am a perpetual people pleaser. And my mind, if I'm not aware of it, will do whatever it takes to avoid conflict or having someone not like me. It really irks me. So it stems way back after some work and everything. I've realized that it stems way back from some abandonment issues I have in my life. But truthfully, at the core of it all, and possibly at the core of, I think, almost all of the world's people's personal issues, stems from a very low level of self-love, of self-esteem, you might call it, but I like to use the word or the terminology of self-love better. But anyways, my survival mechanism is to basically grin and bear it. So it's a way for me to manage events or moments that trigger soft spots in me, my weakness. I don't like to call them weaknesses, but the points in my history or the points in my psyche that are imbalanced, that have fear attached to them, that have some limiting beliefs attached to them. So I spent decades just letting myself be abused in every possible way, all in the name of being loved and accepted and included. So I'd rather do that than actually find my voice. So I wouldn't rock the boat. I wouldn't share my voice, my truth. And it became really chronic, where there came a time where I physically became very ill. And I started to have some real issues, even some mental health issues, because there's only so long you can do this for. The real you really wants to come out and live. And when you have this kind of conflict and you're not aware of what's really happening, it can really cause havoc in your life. So survival mechanisms had a place, or sometimes have a place, where I talk about, having episodes or events where you're in mortal danger, or you really have to act very quickly. But the majority of our time, it's not that way. So we really need to be very present and conscious about when these survival mechanisms are kicking in, right? And when am I actually choosing what I want?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Now, stress is a major issue on our society, and women seem to be overwhelmed by it. So what recommendation would you give our audience about how to begin to take back control of this stress?
Yeah, stress is like the number one killer. Let's be honest, right? So I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but truly being present in your day-to-day moments and in your day and in your life is the key. So when you become more aware, you begin to see the freedom you actually have when you choose how you're going to experience your life. So this results in you feeling more confident, empowered. And from there, the stress just organically melts away. Stress is a physical or a physical combination, a physical and mental, I think, combination manifestation of fear. The real source of our stress is fear. So there is an ingrained fear that you cannot guarantee an outcome, that you can't control a person or a situation. But when you see and prove to yourself time and time again that you do have a choice of how you, again, respond as opposed to react to your world. So you respond to your world as opposed to being shaken and flung around like a rag doll, like you have no control. The fear actually begins to weaken its hold on you, and you begin to create a new habit and a new way of seeing the world. So another essential, like number one practice that I get all my clients to do right from the beginning is a practice of self-love. This is a huge biggie for us women, specifically women. I don't know why it is, but we have been really screwed up by society into making us think that if we do things we enjoy above the needs and the desires of others, especially our families, then we are selfish and we're greedy. And of course, the infamous definition of she's just a bitch. And excuse my language, but that's basically the way society bangs it out for us. Yep. So I would argue here that if you, as a woman, don't take a few moments in your day to give yourself time and space, real acts of intentional love towards yourself, you're going to burn out. And I see this time and time again. And you, Sherry, have seen it probably in your clients, the people you see. But basically, we'll be of no use to anyone if we don't take care of ourselves. So self-care is the most selfless thing you can do for those that you love. And I know that sounds contrary, but it's absolutely the truth. And life is complex. And yes, there are a million things that we've got to do. And we all have to do it right now. So planning and organizing yourself really helps, I find, to make sure that you do get those small moments of self-care in your day. The tool I use, and I can absolutely give you this link so that you can share this with everyone as well. It's a free document, is the daily well-being checklist. So all my clients will go through this practice because I think it's an essential foundational work for yourself. And I actually have a free 5-day series that I would love to invite all of your viewers to sign up and do. And this is specifically created for women, to support women navigating the healing process of separation and divorce. It's because it's one of those life events that just can shake your world. But it also incorporates all the basics that any woman looking to reset her life and begin building her life again with empowerment and clean slate and clarity can use. I'm sorry, going back to the well-being checklist. I totally tangented there. I've got my notes here, but I went off on a tangent. Sorry.
It's all good. It's all good.
So the well-being checklist is actually, it's not anything that innovative. It's actually something a teacher taught me years ago. And I know that personally it made all the difference for me. So all it is, Sherry, is you basically choose 10 things that you do each day that brings you joy or peace or space and just makes you feel good. That's it. But the trick here, and you might say, well, everyone can do that. Why doesn't everyone do it? Here's the trick. The trick here is that you choose to do, first of all, you choose the items yourself. And then that you do them every day, or at least the majority of them. And of course, there's always some sort of journaling in there that I really like people to do as well, so that they can also begin to see the process of the awareness practice happening. So I always recommend things like a mindfulness practice, something like a breath work or meditation. I know you've spoken about that before in your past posts and everything too. But truthfully, we can do things as simple as drinking a glass of water first thing in the morning while you stare at your maple tree outside your front door. It could be very simple loving action items that you do for yourself. The key is to bring space into your mind, really feel that connection with your true self when you're doing the action, and be super aware that you're choosing to do it, and you're choosing to do it to prove to yourself your love for yourself. And of course, you need to be consistent, right? So maybe you do all 10 things for 5 days straight, and then one day, on day 6, you fall off the rails. And it happens to everyone. And this is probably the number one issue with a lot of people, is that trying to keep that consistency, because you're like, oh, this seems like such a menial little thing or little detail, and I feel better now. So, and then you leave it, right? But as you know, in fitness and in everything, anything that's worth doing, repetition is the key. Practice is the key, right? And the main point here is that you're putting yourself first. And for many women, this might be the very first time they ever do that intentionally.
Yeah.
And it will feel really weird. And it will feel almost like this is wrong, but that's what makes it so revolutionary. And the fear begins to chip away slowly and steadily. And with it, the expression of this fear in your mind and your body, hence stress. And lastly, and absolutely, find support, whether it's in healthcare practitioners, well-being providers, your social circle, like friends or family, and of course, supportive groups like yours, Sherry. It makes a massive difference for so many because it just reinforces the fact that you're not alone and you're not the only one going through it. So
Yeah.
those are my best recommendations for trying to combat that stress.
That's awesome. I love the way you say it doesn't have to be a big thing. And you think,
No.
you take time for yourself, you think, well, I better go make that 5-day spa visit or something,
Yeah.
like it doesn't have to be like that. Just taking
Yeah.
a glass of water and going outside and breathing, looking at the flowers, like that's a really good point, is to let everybody know that it's a little thing which can end up being a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I love that.
what's key as well is that when it's a small thing, you really have no excuse, right? Because when you say,
True.
yeah, I'm gonna create this. Okay, I'm gonna go into a silent retreat. I'm not gonna, I see some people come in and they're like, and I mean, they're beautiful, and it all comes from a space of they're so hopeful and they're wanting like to make these big changes. And yes, sometimes big shakeups like that can really make a difference. But it's in the consistency and in the small little things and in just the intention of doing, look, I'm making this tea for myself, putting the tea bag in, and I know that this tea bag is going to bring me calm because it's chamomile, and I don't know, I bought organic, and I really believe that this is going to bring me, some health benefits or whatever. And just that in itself. So do the things that you're already doing and maybe switch them up a bit just by that conscious element. And it's miraculous. It really is.
That's amazing. So your latest project, Back to Me, is that 5-day free series for women navigating separation and divorce. And you made mention of it. But
sorry.
can you, no, it's all good. It's all good. But can you tell us a bit more about this, why you created it and why you're giving it away for free? What's that all about?
Yeah, I get that as well, because 5 days it's a 5-day series. And I'm sorry, again, I jumped the gun before. It kind of came out. But for 5 days, you receive almost an hour audio coaching session with me, with meditation recordings and other resources that go with it. So I created Back to Me as a give back, and that's why it's free. I created it and I put a lot of heart into it. It took a long time to create because they are really meaty. They're meaty. So I created it again to give back to women and teachers who have so generously helped me while I was going through decades, really, of many traumas in my life. And one of them being my 2 divorces. Breakups are hard, and in any type of relationship, actually, they're very hard. And divorce and separation are big events in our lives, and they have a way of, in my experience, like breaking us down. And it breaks down our belief systems, our confidence in ourselves, and sometimes even our understanding about ourselves. But I also think that this is why it's such a beautiful opportunity to allow for massive transformation. And it's something that I actually felt as well. So yes, divorce or separation, it feels like a car wreck. It's like chaos, every body parts, it's like horrible. But I mean, not for everyone. Some people have a little bit more fortune of having maybe a partner who can work through the process of it. But for me, that chaos was like an opening for me to change and to transform and evolve. Each divorce for me, because I'm on my 3rd marriage now, each divorce for me was a catalyst for me to push into my own healing journey and finally begin to learn who I truly was, who I truly am. And it's scary as hell, Sherry, but at the same time, it's exciting. It's all about perspective, right? So as you start to get out of the darkness of it and you start to begin to catch like little glimpses of the possibilities, like real possibilities, not just fantasy, you can't help but find yourself really open and hopeful and courageous. And there's nothing more inspiring than seeing a woman inspired. It's powerful. And that's what I hope that this free series can give to any woman out there that's looking to reset her life, take the opportunity to reinvent herself, from her truth, from a space of truth, not the definitions that society has given us. So we are better together. And as women out there supporting and empowering other women like you are, Sherry, it's a collective empowerment. I know it sounds cliche, but it moves mountains. And that's really my hope with Back to Me, and also with the Wellbeing Mentorship, that so no, you don't actually have to be in the middle of divorce or breakup to participate in this. I've actually had a lot of women who, just because it has all the foundational pieces to it, is a great starting point for them to kind of basically go through the 5 elements. And so the 5 elements that I go through each day is awareness, forgiveness, clarity, self-love, vision, and creation. It's basically the process for anything, to be honest with you, any type of trauma you're going through. So
anybody can benefit from that. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I also, on top of that, offer a lot of free resources on my Instagram and YouTube channel, because I just love to share this stuff. And it doesn't always have to be in a long, processed kind of session. It's amazing how little tidbits it'll go into your mind, and it begins to kind of open up new windows for people. And you start to shift your perspective a little bit. And that's really where the magic happens.
That's amazing. Now, you just mentioned a little bit about connecting with you. So how can women do that, connect with you, if they are interested in working with you directly, or they just want some more information? What can they do?
Sure, yeah. First of all, I'd love it, and I'd be honored. If anyone out there feels like they want more support or just wants to connect, they can book a complimentary, that roadmap to clarity call that I mentioned previously, and that's via my website, and we can share that. That's elementaltruth.ca, but we can share that in the details. And it's basically a 45-minute private call, one-on-one, where we talk about your current needs. We figure out where you can create some changes, like real changes right away, and add some powerful tools kind of to your arsenal for yourself to begin the process of gaining the clarity and confidence back in your life. And from there, we can chat about moving deeper into working together if you feel it's time. For women in particular, looking to heal from divorce and separation in a little bit more of a deeper process, I also have a new 90-day program that goes deeper into that healing work, a little bit much deeper actually than the 5-day series. And of course, I'm always uploading videos and helpful resources, like I said, in my social media platforms. So I'd love for people to connect that way, or they could connect through here, because now I'm connected with this lovely group, and I'm always open for questions and referrals. Sometimes people just write to me asking, I really need a really great nutritionist, or they start asking me about all different types of different things, because again, Wellbeing Mentorship looks at the entire being. It's not just a psychological or a mental or emotional. It's a whole process. And I've been really blessed to meet wonderful people like yourself, Sherry, that are real, and they're women that really have the genuine passion for being of service. So that's what I love to do. So if I could refer out to other people as well, I do that as well.
We're definitely going to be talking about that.
Yes.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. So I want to thank you, Juliana, so much for joining me today for Fit Tip Friday. You will find Juliana's contact information right above this video, so you can connect with her directly. We're going to leave all that information for you. And Juliana has also agreed to be an expert on SC Wellness Solutions Facebook page, so you can also leave any questions below for her as well. Thank you again for joining me, and thank you all for watching today, and have a fantastic weekend.
Fit Tip Friday.